In August 2025, beef prices in the US shot up 11.3% compared to the same time last year, meaning a pound of beef now pushes close to $8.90. At the same time, global Arabica coffee prices surged by 30% right after Brazil stopped being the source of cheap coffee. Have you started to feel it yet? This is no longer just mild inflation. It is food breaking out of your budget. The everyday items in your grocery cart are slowly slipping out of reach, squeezed by higher prices, taxes, and shortages. If you do not act now, something you consider basic this month could easily become something you can no longer afford next month. That is why before they vanish from your table, you need to know the 5 items you should buy and stock up on right now. Number 1. Real butter. Here is the truth. That stick of butter in your fridge is no longer the everyday staple it used to be. Not because you are eating less of it, but because you cannot afford to buy as much as before. In just 1 year, butter prices in many states have jumped nearly 30%. What used to be something people tossed into the cart without a second thought has now become a purchase you hesitate over every time you pull out your wallet. And the real problem goes beyond the price. If you do not buy real butter, now what you call butter in the future may not be butter at all. Many brands are quietly replacing real dairy butter with cheaper margarine products blended with industrial oils, artificial colors, and synthetic flavors. You think you are still spreading butter? Read the label again. What you are putting on your morning toast could be a manufactured mix filled with ingredients your cardiologist would tell you to avoid. But no one warns you, no one says a word. No, the packaging still says natural, still shows that gentle yellow color, still smells just like the butter your mom used years ago. Plenty of people have already crossed butter off their weekly shopping list, thinking they are saving money. But what is the real cost? Real butter is a source of healthy fats packed with natural vitamins A, D, and K2. For older adults, people with diabetes, or anyone on diets that cannot handle hydrogenated vegetable oils, real butter is almost the only choice left. When it disappears from the fridge, it is not just about losing a food item. It is about losing control of your own health. Strange, isn't it? A stick of butter that no one used to pay attention to is now at the center of a silent replacement. There is no announcement, no news coverage. One day you open the fridge, grab a tub of butter, and what is inside is no longer butter. That is the moment you realize you missed the most important window, the time you should have bought and stored it. Some people who saw this coming have already started stocking up on real butter by freezing it. They cut it into portions, vacuum seal it, and freeze it. Properly stored frozen butter can last up to 9 months without going bad. They do not wait until prices hit the peak. They act while butter is still on the shelves and not yet swapped out for the cheap and dangerous version. If you have always thought of butter as just a garnish, something you can do without, then maybe you have never been forced to use margarine as a substitute. Try baking with fake butter, and you will see the difference instantly. The flavor is not the same, the texture is not the same, and the worst part is the doubt it plants in your own cooking. That feeling of not trusting something you used to consider familiar is exactly why middle-aged consumers are angrier, more disappointed, and more alert than ever before. Butter used to be a simple symbol of comfort, a pat melting on warm bread, a spoon melting into steamed vegetables, a little spread across a baked potato. Now it has become a symbol of a quiet but painful change when even the simplest foods start turning into luxuries. And if you do not hold on to it now next month, you might not have the chance at all. Do not wait until you open the lid and find out what is inside is no longer butter. By then it is too late. The time is now. Real butter, still authentic, still on the shelf, still not replaced, or priced out of reach is the warning sign. Either you buy it now or you may never buy it again. No one will give you a heads up. No one will apologize. Inflation does not knock. It only needs you to let your guard down once. Number 2. Lettuce and everyday greens. Lettuce and leafy greens are no longer the default items people toss into their carts. In just 1 month, retail prices have jumped nearly 35%, according to the Department of Agriculture. In the past, a spike like that only happened in full-blown food crises. While most people only complain about the cost of eggs or milk, the most affordable vegetables are quietly disappearing from sight until your grocery cart feels barren without them. Here comes another shock. Those ready-to-go salad bags that once filled supermarket shelves are now showing up in limited numbers in low-income neighborhoods. The places where shoppers rely on local discount vouchers are still receiving shipments, but the greens are running out faster than ever. This is not a sign of a short-term shortage. It is a quiet redistribution where leafy greens are funneled toward areas that can pay more instead of the people who need them most. Equally important is what greens do for the human body. Fiber and micronutrients from vegetables help regulate blood sugar, lower cholesterol, and support digestion, especially for older adult diabetics and those on restricted diets. When vegetables are pushed off the dinner table, the result is not just the feeling of missing a side dish. It is the slow accumulation of long-term health risks. And no sale flyer or glossy ad is ever going to say that. If you have looked closely at packaged salads lately, you might have noticed expiration dates creeping up faster than before. Meanwhile, many small farms have been forced to cut back harvests, selling at lower prices to wholesalers instead of holding produce back for small local supermarkets. Rising input costs and shrinking consumer demand leave their mark. For the everyday shopper, the reality is simple vegetables used to be cheap. Now they feel out of reach on a weekly budget. No one sends out a household notice that says 1 bag of greens per customer. But that is what happens in practice. Show up late and you will have no choice but to turn to processed food instead. A friend of mine told me imported greens cost twice as much and wilt before I even get them home. That is not just money draining away. That is trust in the idea of fresh itself being chipped away. Some people are adapting by growing their own lettuce in small bowls right on the kitchen counter. It is not some trendy lifestyle choice. It is a survival reflex from the bottom of the wallet, a way to make sure there is something green on the plate, even if it is only a little each meal rather than a full serving. They have realized something very clear. Free samples coupons or the old assumption that greens belong on every plate no longer hold true. As inflation seeps deeper into the grocery basket, foods once considered ordinary are turning into luxuries. And people are adjusting one step at a time by storing, growing, and stretching every bite just to avoid sitting down to a meal without a single vegetable in sight. One chilling thought tomorrow: if you do nothing, your meal might start with a jar of sauce or a packet of noodles standing in for the fresh produce that is missing. Leafy greens, the most familiar foods of all, are being pushed into a place you never wanted them to go off your normal dinner table. Number 3. Beef. A pound of beef is no longer just food. It has become a source of worry. No one is sounding the alarm, but if you look around the supermarket, you will notice fewer people stopping at the beef section. Not because they do not like it, but because they hesitate. They stand there staring, unable to pick it up. Just last month, ground beef was around $5 a pound. Now it is close to $7. And steak. In some places, it reaches $12, even $14 if the cut looks good. A meal with beef is starting to feel like a luxury item, even if you do not live in New York or dine out at restaurants. The strange thing is no one is really raising the issue. Prices rise gradually, little by little. Older shoppers think it is just this shipment. Those on fixed incomes try to adjust. Others switch to chicken or filler-stretched ground meat without realizing they have already left the group of people who can eat beef regularly. Falling out of that rhythm does not make noise, but it is real. And once it happens, there is no way back unless you prepare ahead of time. People once chose beef because it felt reliable. Clean protein, decent quality, easy to cook, rich in iron, suitable for older adults, diabetics, and those on special diets. But now that very group is backing away from the meat aisle. They cannot keep up anymore. Every package of beef becomes a math problem in their head. If they buy beef, they have to skip the vegetables. If they buy steak, they cannot afford eggs this week. We are not just paying for food, we are paying for memories. Beef has always been tied to the idea of a proper meal. It sits on the holiday table. It is in the beef and vegetable stew on a cold winter night. Now those memories are being repriced and the choice is no longer yours. The most unsettling part is not the cost, it is the quiet shift happening in the background. Supermarkets are stocking fewer fresh cuts and more ground or pre-marinated beef. And you already know what pre-marinated means. It means you no longer control the sodium additives or preservatives. It means people with high blood pressure, weak kidneys, or strict diets are being pushed away. One mother shared that she has switched to canned beef because she cannot afford fresh cuts every week anymore. How does it feel like being pushed out of the real supply chain? You did not choose this. You were forced into it? Between 2008 and 2010, beef prices rose. But they never pushed people into today's mindset where meat is treated like an investment. Some buy in bulk and freeze portions. Others turn to local farms to lock in prices early. Most just sigh because beef no longer feels meant for them. People are starting to wonder, will there still be beef on the table tomorrow or only in memory? Some are even warning each other, buy now, do not wait. Because the moment you realize you truly need beef is the same moment you may no longer be able to afford it. You may have always believed beef was essential, but if you do not act now, it will disappear from your family menu. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in the quiet moments when you lower your head, walk past the meat counter, and keep your hands to yourself. Number 4. Pure coffee. Coffee used to be the automatic start to the day, something you never had to think about. Now it is the item that makes people take a deep breath in front of the shelf. In August 2025, Arabica prices on the global exchange jumped more than 30% in just 1 month after the US slapped a 50% tariff on imports from Brazil. That move pushed prices to record highs never before seen in the history of the coffee market. And it does not stop there. In just the first half of the year, the World Bank projected Arabica prices would climb another notch, totaling more than a 50% increase for the year before easing sometime next year. Which means your morning cup of coffee is no longer a simple choice. It has become a battle between your budget and your habits. The story is not just about price. Anyone who once thought of coffee as harmless will be stunned to learn that the market is now being hammered by tariffs, extreme weather, and speculation. Pure Arabica is becoming vulnerable to counterfeits, to flavor-scented blends, or even to recalls when caffeine slips into products labeled decaf. For deadline chasers who run on morning coffee, seeing a bag of pure beans jump 30 to 50% is a hit to one of the simplest needs. For older adults, diabetics, or those who care about knowing their food sources, that cup of coffee is no longer a matter of taste, but of risk. A longer receipt. A bag diluted with fillers they do not trust, but still drink just to stay awake. Many people are already adjusting. They stop buying the 500-gram bags, switch to smaller packs, reheat yesterday's coffee, or settle for cheaper blends of questionable quality. Some turn to whole beans instead of pre-ground grinding and brewing by hand to at least control what they can. Small coffee shops have had to raise prices by a full $1 per cup just to cover the cost of beans. No explanation needed. One look at the menu tells you how bad things have gotten. At that point, coffee drinkers are not just sipping a beverage, they are paying for the comfort of a morning ritual, stretching their budget just to keep a habit alive. Others try to cut back by making stronger cold brews so they can drink less, but still get the caffeine, or by switching to Robusta beans that are less exposed to Arabica's market risks. Either way, they feel the loss of no longer choosing the coffee they truly believe in. The price of coffee now reflects a bigger fate. It is no longer as simple as wanting it and having it. You may have to choose between enjoying coffee or having a proper breakfast. The most dangerous part is not the price hike. It is the silent transition when something once seen as untouchable turns into an everyday sacrifice. Pure coffee was once a sure thing, personal and reliable, the spark that kept you sharp. Now, if you are not careful, the rising price tag will leave you hesitating or abandoning your morning coffee altogether. If one morning you cautiously pour yourself a cup of Vietnamese coffee you stocked up on last month and notice it tastes more bitter than usual, that is not just flavor. It is your senses warning you. Pure coffee is slipping into the danger zone. Do not wait until the day you wake up not with energy and excitement, but with the realization that you have lost access to something you always thought was your daily right. Number 5. Dry beans or canned beans without additives. The price of dry beans today makes people stop in their tracks. Not because they cannot afford them, but because there is no real substitute. According to US CPI data, the price of dry beans, lentils, and similar legumes has jumped 139% since 1997. That means a bag that once cost $5 nearly 3 decades ago now eats up close to $12, one of the sharpest increases any basic food has ever endured. For many, beans have long been the backbone of a frugal meal, a cheap source of protein, easy to store, and friendly to heart health, especially for older adults, diabetics, or anyone on a diet. But now it is not simply about wanting them. Even beans are starting to feel premium compared to fixed incomes. And what about canned beans? Recently, families across the country got a rude awakening. Yellowstone brown sugar molasses baked beans were pulled from shelves because they contained soy allergens that were never listed on the label. The FDA had to recall more than 4,500 cans distributed across 23 states. You can easily picture the situation. If you or someone you love is allergic to soy, a can of beans you thought was safe could literally take your breath away. Seniors, people with food sensitivities, those carefully managing their diet. They are not just losing money. They are losing trust in what was once a dependable staple on the dinner table. And canned beans have plenty of other pitfalls. Every time you save 30 cents by picking a flavored or special sauce variety, you often trade away simplicity and take on more sugar and salt than you realize. Safety and clear labeling should matter more because heart health is no longer a luxury. It is a necessity. If you buy dry beans, what you need is a sealed bag stored in a cool, dry place. Beans are one of those things you can wait out the market with, but not right now. Because when you pick up a bag of beans today, you realize the longer they last in storage, the more valuable they become. One of the few foods holding its nutritional worth, while the system steadily prices you out. Many families are cutting back on canned beans. They are soaking and cooking beans at home, not because they suddenly love the process, but because each pound now feels like a treasure that must be stretched as far as possible. A pot of beans with added vegetables or a scoop of chicken porridge is no longer just a side dish. It is survival for the family meal. If you are feeling that beans used to be cheap but now are not, it is more than sticker shock. It is the first time you start doubting what safe really means in your kitchen. Countless people who never check the ingredient list are now reading labels carefully. Because labels can be blank, flavors can cover things up, but the consequences do not bend. Even if no one in your household has allergies, it is still smart to avoid canned beans from unclear sources. That sweet molasses glaze you thought was harmless could end up being a hit to an older person's health. because salt and sugar remain hidden risks even when beans are the base. So, if you spot a bag of quality dry beans priced lower than expected, that is your golden chance to grab it. The market is shifting and beans are on their way to becoming the food you regret most when they disappear from shelves right at the moment people need them to hold meals and their faith in the system together. Some might say, let's wait a bit, maybe prices will drop. But the market does not wait. Inflation does not send you a notice. And when the foods you once saw as basic suddenly turn into luxuries, the only smart move left is to act while you still can. These 5 items, real dairy, everyday greens, beef, pure coffee, and clean beans, are not tips for the wealthy. They are warnings for anyone trying to keep a balanced meal in a society that is quietly leaving lower-income families behind. You once lived comfortably with them. Do not let the day come when you are staring at them through supermarket glass, only to walk away empty-handed.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage education. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.